Hi there, today's book is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. In the beginning of the book, we have someone who's walking in the rain and they have a bloody knife as they're walking along the street. Now, because it's raining, the blood is pretty much being washed off by the rain, and we see that this woman eventually throws the knife over the cliff. Now, as she's walking back towards the house, she hears her sister scream. And then she goes into the garage for a rope. All right. So this is in the past. And now after that, we go into today. So today we meet Kit McDear. She is a home health aide at Guerlain Home Health Aid Services. And she has been in trouble recently because she had taken charge of her mom, who was terminally ill. And so her mom wanted her to care for her. So she, I guess, was contracted out through the company that she works for as her mom's caregiver. So there's something that happened that we didn't know the details of initially, but she was blamed for her mom dying. And so we see that she's in major trouble and she's finally going back to work. Although Mr. Guerlain, who owns the agency, doesn't really want her back, the police investigation kind of didn't really allow her to be prosecuted, and so as a result of them not finding enough to be able to prosecute her for any wrongdoing, she's able to come back to work. So now that she's back to work, he's not really happy for her to be there. It's her last chance. He doesn't want to hear anything from her. She's pretty much going to get what she gets and be quiet and move along. So there's an assignment that comes up for a caregiver in this ritzy neighborhood, and it's at Hope's End. It's a McMansion from this well-to-do couple back in the 1920s. So anyway, this person that she's supposed to be caring for is a murderer, and so everybody in town knows the story of what happened at Hope's End. And she's not really wanting to go there, but she has no option. She needs the money, and Mr. Guerlain doesn't want to hear her foolishness. So she has to take the assignment, although she doesn't really want to. But she figures that she would take the job for a few weeks, save up some money, and then just bounce. So she goes and takes the assignment. And in the meantime, she's not really having a great relationship with her dad. And so when she went home to pack up her things to go to the assignment, she just snuck out and didn't really say bye to him either, because although they're living in the same house, they're a bit estranged over the whole thing with her mom. So when she goes to Hope's End, it's a huge mansion that's just massive and sprawling. It's at the top of a cliff, at the edge of a cliff that's on the ocean. And so she goes there. She meets the main, I guess, house manager. Her name is Mrs. Baker. She's very strict, but she's in charge of everything that's going on there. And so she's supposed to be taking care of Lenora Hope. Now, Lenora Hope is notorious for, although it wasn't proven as far as police procedures or anything like that, it wasn't proven that she was the one who committed the murder, although everybody thought she was the one. But anyway, she was accused of killing her family, which was her mom and her dad, Evangeline and Winston Hope, and then her sister Virginia. Her sister Virginia was hung, and so she was the only one that was left. So Lenora Hope now is partially paralyzed. She can't really do anything for herself, and so she's the person who's going to be the client. She can only move her left hand. So the way she communicates is to tap with her hand, one for no, two for yes, or I believe that's the right sequence. So, that's the way they communicate. So she has to take care of her every need because she can't really do anything for herself. So when she gets there, she's a little bit scared. And the place is, notorious just because of this story. So while she's there, she meets Jessie, who is a housekeeper there. And she's young, and they kind of have a little friendship going. She also learns about the prior health aide who was there before, and found out that she had upped and disappeared just randomly out the blue. And then when she went to her room, which is the room that she's inheriting from the prior health aide, she finds that all her stuff was still there, which was weird because if, they were saying that she probably left or maybe she had a family emergency or something like that. But she had left all her things, even her medical bag was still there, all her books. But this is the story she's given, so she's like, okay, well, maybe she left and intended to come back. And also because she wasn't planning on staying there for very long, she didn't really unpack her stuff either. So it's not that the things there was bothering her. So the prior nurse aide was Mary Milton. So she was the one who bought Lenora a typewriter. So there's a typewriter there that she can use her good hand to, type out words. If she wants to ask her like open-ended questions, she can type the words. So they eventually start to communicate that way, but Lenora wants her to keep it a secret because she doesn't want anybody to know. And so, she starts delving into her life and what really happened there. So this murder, the massacre of the family, had taken place in 1929. So now, in present day, it's like 54 years later. So she's really old now, gray hair. And I believe she's in her 60s. Around there. So after a while, now the other thing that's really weird, it's a little weird. So the house is on the cliff, and it seemed like it's settling because on the second floor is very uneven, and it's very noticeable that the house is lopsided. Some areas along the staircase, there's cracks in the wall, and it's just weird that nobody seems concerned about this house settling so dramatically that you can feel that it's off kilter. And so nobody's concerned that this house might fall into the ocean or something, like something's going on. But anyway, their family was super, super rich back in the day. And so I guess, it's a lot to take care of. And, over the years, I guess money has run low. So I guess she kind of understands like, okay, but still, this is weird. Why isn't anybody concerned about this? So anyway, one day she went outside and she saw like some clips that seemed to have fallen off like the roof or something like that. And so while she was out on the terrace, she ended up looking over the terrace and saw something down there. And then what do you know? She realized that it was a body, and she found out that it was Mary Milton, who was the prior nurse's aide. So when she called the police, of course, they're suspicious of her. It's the same police who was involved in the investigation into her mom's death. And so they kind of butt heads. She doesn't like him, and he's, I guess, not very gentle with her, and he's not scared to show that he doesn't care for her much either. So they butt heads over that. So now Kit is like feeling like something's not right, because why would Mary just up and leave? And then now she's dead. She feels like Mary must have found something out that somebody doesn't want her to know. So now she's really intrigued and wanting to push Lenora to find out what really happened. So they talk about the past, and then we discover that the history of the house, the characters in the house, their dad was having affairs with the maids who were there at the time. Their mom was kind of on some medication where she just locked up in her room, and she was pretty much drugged up for most of the time. As they go back in the past, we find out that Lenora was in love with this guy called Ricardo Mayhew, and she became pregnant while she was in her teen by him. But the thing is that this guy was also married, so there's a huge issue with that. And her dad, she hid it for as long as she could. Her dad was not happy about that. So there's Ricardo Mayhew there. His wife Bernice was a maid there as well. We also meet Archie, who was a friend of Virginia, and Virginia is a sister who was hung. So he's been there for a long, long time, and so he hung around to help to take care of Lenora. And then Mrs. Baker, she is the head of, kind of like a head mistress, not mistress. She's the head of the household, but initially she was hired to teach them like etiquette and make sure they grew up to be proper, act properly as ladies or whatever. And she had left at some point years ago, but she had come back to take care of Lenora when she, was sick. So there's Archie and Lenora, who are the main people at the house. And then we also meet Carter, who is the groundskeeper. He lives in a cottage on site, on the property. So while Kit is taking care of Lenora, they kind of have a little friendship going on, in a sense, as much as somebody could have a friendship. She's kind of intrigued by her and wanted to hear more and more of her story. So one day, Lenora wanted to go outside, and she was like, before that, Kit had asked about her son, her child that she had, what became of the baby. And so Lenora didn't really want to talk about that. But anyway, one day she wanted to go outside, and Kit was like, no, that's against the rules. But she promised that if she took her outside, she would talk to her about the baby. So she decides to trudge outside, drag down the stairs, I think two flights or 3 flights of stairs to get her outside. And what do you know? They were outside, and after a while, this was while Mrs. Baker and Jesse were out, and then they were outside for so long, Kit had fallen asleep. They were just laying down there in the grass. And what do you know? They get busted. Here comes Mrs. Baker, and everybody's back, and they're outside. So now she thought for sure that she was going to be fired. But she wasn't fired, but instead Mrs. Baker threw the typewriter into the ocean. So they didn't have any way of communicating anymore. And so things kind of, they didn't really have much communication now. So things got kind of boring in the typical client health aid relationship, because they had no way of talking or anything like that. So after this happens, she went and got a Ouija board that Jesse had. Jesse had played a trick on her with the Ouija board, so this was a way that she figured they could talk further. So after this period of time, we discover that I'm trying to not reveal the twist. There's a twist that happens here that we find out that someone is not who they are. And so because of that, Kit decided that she was no longer going to stay there on assignment. She's going to go back home, and she said goodbye to Lenora, and so she went home. When she went home, she found some things at her house that her dad had that led her to become aware of a connection between her dad and the Hopes. So when she found these things, she made a connection between what had happened to Mary and these items that she found. So she had to head back over to Hope's End because there was something going on, and she felt like her dad had gone back there. So when they went back there, what do you know? Finally, there's some issues with the house that's significant, that destroys a lot of the house. But anyway, while they were there, there's a lot of secrets that came out, and a couple twists towards the end of the book. And one I couldn't really believe. So there's one twist of the person that we thought, who's not who we thought they were. And then the other twist is that we thought for sure that Lenora was the one who had massacred her family, and we find out that that wasn't quite the case. And then there was another twist with what happened with the house. And so after this whole thing happened with the house, then there was another twist as well that happened with the relationship that Kit has with Lenora towards the end of the book. And so a lot of things that we had thought throughout the book was not that. So if you like a twisty book, this is a good one. Granted, the book was pretty stable for most of it, although I was like wanting to know like what is the real truth about this family massacre, because throughout the book we have an indication or suggestion that what the urban legend is not really true. What seems to be what meets the eye, there's more to it than what we're seeing. So I wanted to find out like what was the real truth, who killed who, and what was the circumstances around that, which we didn't really find out until towards the end. Riley did a great job of just drip, drip, drip with the suspense on this one, because I was like, oh my goodness, what really happened? I want to know. And then also the twists at the end. So there is no part of this book that was boring, but I do know that my jaw dropped towards the end of the book. So I would give this one 4.5 stars. If you have read or listened to this book, let me know your thoughts. I tried very hard not to give any spoilers in this one, so forgive me if some things are kind of vague. Anyway, until next time.